Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, we have a variety of fish that we can catch right now this time of the year. Number one, the seasons are all still open. In the spring, another great time to fish. A lot of the seasons aren't open yet, but right now they are. And there's certain species that we don't talk about that exist and I think are really fun to catch. One of them is pickerel. Now, pickerel are the smallest of the pike family. The pickerel are the littlest. Then the next size is northern pike. And then finally, the top of that whole chain are the muskellunge. The muskies are the biggest, northern pike in between. And pickerel are smaller. In the past, most places, if you went to fish for pickerel, a 3 or 4 pounder was considered a huge pickerel. And most of them are going to run below a pound. They're thinner. But I'll tell you, they make up for it. Of those 3 type of pike, pickerel are the most ferocious, the most scrappy. Those things they'll hit just about all the time because they're so aggressive and they want to feed. So where do you go to fish for pickerel? Well, in St. Lawrence County, there aren't a lot of waters, or maybe hardly any, that have pickerel in them. But just go a little bit further south into Jefferson County, and there's some phenomenal pickerel fishing. One of the bodies of water that has good pickerel fishing is the Indian River, and that's always appealed to me. That river, it just sort of flows through such a wild and unbusied areas. And I've always wanted to put a canoe in the Indian River and float several miles. And there's pickerel, and there's walleyes, and there's bass. Another place, and now we're talking almost world record size pickerel, is in the bays of Lake Ontario. Henderson Harbor, for example, has incredible pickerel fishing. These fish there, these pickerel, are the size of what we usually consider northern pike to be good fish. And also Sackett's Harbor. But for some reason, sort of the county line is a cutoff point, and you don't see pickerel in most of our waters, ponds and streams. They just aren't here. But it is a fish that you can catch in big numbers and have a blast this time of year if you just head a little bit south. Oneida Lake has fabulous pickerel fishing as well as northern pike. The two exist together. And there's lots of waters in between Oneida Lake and up here that do have pickerel. Another fish that you can fish for this time of the year, and probably not any other times unless you have a big boat, are salmon. Salmon are running in all the different tributaries that enter Lake Ontario. And salmon fishing is its own type of fishing, different than any other. One of the things that usually comes with salmon fishing is crowds of people. This fish can be glorious. This fish can be so powerful that landing one is an exception rather than the norm because there's so many different ways that they can get off. But this is the time of the year. The Salmon River and all the other little tiny streams that flow into Lake Ontario, there'll be salmon that come up it and will give you a chance to catch them. And then, of course, this time of the year can be one of the best times to fish for trout, especially lake trout. And I got to tell you, I've had great memories of fishing lake trout, and yet I almost never talk about it. So fall fishing has its charm. Fall fishing is a transition time, and this is something that we all should be aware of, that fish normally, irregardless of the tremendous fluctuations in water level that we've had this year, in the fall there's a transition time where they have a complete different timing of their life at this time. The baits that they feed on, those little baits that were formed in the early part of the year, and there were thousands and thousands of them, little tiny short baits. Well, those that survived during the summer, by this time, when fish go to feed on those baits are going to be bigger. So in this transition time, as a rule, it might be a good time to upscale, to use the same type of baits you've used, only bigger versions of them. That might make them more effective. Fishes, with the water getting cooler and cooler as the fall goes on, the fish's metabolism is going to change. and you want a different type of approach. They may not be as readily able to chase something fast. You got to slow down a little bit. But fall fishing can be wonderful. You know, I talked about salmon fishing and the crowds that you'll get. Well, in most of the other fall fishing, the crowds are going to disappear and you'll have that water to yourself. There's so many other things that people do now that it's fall and preparing for winter and all the things that are part of our transition. Just remember, the fish are transitioning now too, and they will have different habits. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.